It's Miss Jennifer from Somerset Academy of Music, and I'm so excited to be here with you today because it's been a long time since I made a video. And today we're going to be talking about my favorite tips and tricks for reading notes on the grand staff. Let's get started. So, if you're willing to watch the video all the way through to the end, at the end of the video, I'm going to share a secret about this video in particular. Now, don't worry, it's nothing really exciting or that fabulous. So, if you don't have time to watch all the way through the video, that's okay. Just watch as much as you want to get the information that you need. But if you do stick around to the end, I do have some special information just for you for watching. So the most important thing we need to remember at the beginning of all of this is that in music, we only use the first 7 letters of the alphabet. And then after G, instead of going on to H, we continue on with the letter A. And notes just go in that order over and over again as we go alphabetically up the staff, we go forward through the alphabet, and as we go backwards down through the staff, we go backwards through the alphabet. So the first tip or trick that I'm going to share with you today is something that I like to call guidepost notes. Some people call them landmark notes. That's fine. But all it is notes that are easy to identify on the staff. And if we can remember where they are, if we can memorize their location, then it makes it really easy to find the notes that are right around it. So it's kind of like getting 3 notes for the price of 1. So let me show you the first one. So this is our treble clef, and this is our treble staff. So the treble clef has a nickname, and its nickname is G clef. And the reason for that is you can see how it curves down here and it makes a little circle on this second line. So the second line from the bottom, it sort of circles around. And that line is the G line. So that's why its nickname is G clef, because it makes it really easy to identify where the note G is. Now, if we know that that's a G, then it makes it easy to find the 2 notes that are surrounding the G, the note above it and the note below it. So we're just going to use our alphabet. The note that comes after G in the musical alphabet is A, and the note that comes before G in the musical alphabet is F. So right there, just by remembering where the G is on the G clef line, we've got 3 notes, F, G, and A, moving up or down the alphabet. Now the next one is going to be here on the bass clef. The bass clef also has a nickname. Its nickname is F clef, and that's because, as you can probably guess, you see how it puts the 2 dots around the second line from the top. It's got a little dot here, 2 dots surrounding here. Any note on this line is going to be F, okay? And the same way we did it alphabetically up here, if this is F, then the note right above that is going to be G. And then if we go to the note right below F, of course, that is going to be E. So the simplest way I think to read notes is just using your alphabet, going up and down the staff alphabetically. So let me show you the next one. Now this one is one of the first notes people usually learn to play on the piano, and that is middle C. And middle C is created by drawing, we call these little lines that we add above or below the staff, ledger lines. And so when we add this line here, this is called our middle C. Now, we do write it a little differently depending on whether we want to play it with the right hand or the left hand. Let me find my eraser here. So if they want us to play the C with the right hand, then they're going to draw the ledger line a little bit closer to the treble clef. And if they want us to play it with the left hand, they're going to draw the ledger line up closer to the bass clef. So that's C with the right hand, C with the left hand. They're still both middle C, the same note. It's just when they're closer to one clef or the other, like I said before, it's just telling you which hand to play with. Okay, great. So if we know that this note is C, we can use the same process with our alphabet that we did with the other notes. The note right above C is going to be D. And the note right below C, alphabetically going down, would be B. So again, there we've got 3 notes for the price of 1. Our next guidepost note, I'm going to need you to use your imagination a little bit. So I want you to think of our grand staff here. So when we combine the treble clef and the bass clef together with this curvy line here, it's called the grand staff. So I want you to use your imagination and think of the grand staff as if it were a tall, multi-floored building. So we would think of it as down here being the ground floor of the building, and then each line in space is another floor in our tall building. Now up here on top of the building, this would be the roof. up here on top, you may be aware that long ago on old buildings, old hospitals, old churches, they used to put these stone sculptures that they called gargoyles that would sit on top of buildings. If you've ever been to Paris, France, and been to Notre Dame, there's lots of gargoyles all over the whole building. And so they used to put them on top of hospitals or schools or any kind of building that was tall. So I like to think of this little guy as if he's sitting on top of the roof like a gargoyle. And that helps us remember that this note is the letter G. And the same way we used our alphabet before, if that's a G, then the note right above it is going to be an F. If we extend our ledger lines going up, we add another line there, then this is going to be the note A. So we've got our gargoyle G right here. The note right below it is an F. The note above it is an A. Okay. Now, keeping that idea of our multi-floored building, again, if we go back down here, the bottom floor of our building is our ground floor. So that's also a G. We can use the same principle again. The note above G, there's an A. The note below G, letter that comes before G in the alphabet, is an F. So again, remembering one note actually gives us three. So the next trick that I want to show you has all to do with one note in particular. It's a very special note in music, and I'm going to show you why. C is kind of special on the staff, and if we learn its little tricks, it can unlock a whole bunch of notes for us on the staff just by remembering where the note C is. So as I showed you before, we talked about it before, that if we draw the ledger lines here and here, notes on those two lines, it's the same note actually, that's middle C. Okay, now C's, as I said, are very special in music, and especially on the grand staff, and that's because a C just happens to, and this is the only note that does this, C happens to be a mirror opposite of itself on the treble clef and the bass clef. It reflects each other, and I'll show you what I mean by that. So middle C is here, and then if I go 2 spaces from the top, this is a C. And if I go 2 spaces from the bottom, a mirror opposite of that, that is also C. So there's our mirror opposite. It continues on. So if I draw 2 ledger lines above the staff, that is going to be C. And I guess you can guess what I'm going to do next. 2 ledger lines below the staff, that is a C. But, oops, right on the line. So we would call this middle C. We would call this one treble C. This one is bass C, high C, and low C. There's still even more yet. So if I were to draw 5 ledger lines above the staff, and this note is going to be in the space here. We're ignoring all this up here. 5 ledger lines above the staff, this note is C. Now, if I go, as you can guess, because it's mirror opposite, 5 ledger lines below the staff is, yep, that's right, you guessed it, in this space right here, that's a C. Now, you don't often see these C's notated that way. There's other ways we can write them when we have notes that are extremely high or extremely low. But it is a great thing to go ahead and make a mental note of that 5 ledger lines above the staff is going to be a C. And there's actually another C that's even higher than this on the piano as well. That would be the highest C. So it's good to know that, because sometimes definitely in piano music and in more advanced pieces, you can actually, we will have 3, 4, maybe even 5. I've seen C notated like this before. So it's not a bad thing to know. Now, something else that I want to show you, and not only does this apply to C, but this applies to any note that you read on the staff. This is something cool, a neat pattern that we can see that happens in music and reading on the staff. And that is that notes will alternate line and space as they shift octaves. So, as I was talking about, this is our high C here, and this is in the space note above the 5 ledger lines. Then we go down an octave to high C. It's a line note, space, line. We go down another octave to the C, the treble C, that's a space note. Go down another octave. Remember, these are the same pitch, middle C, line. So we've got space, line, line. We go down another octave to bass C, space. An octave down, that's a line. And this C way down here, that's a space. space, line, space, line, space, line, space. Every note follows this pattern of alternating line and space no matter what the letter. Let me show you, let's look at this on a different letter. Let's do, how about let's do F's. Okay, so we talked about before how our bass clef F is right there on a line. So knowing that, we will know that the next F, here's our G clef that helps us remember that F is going to be in this space. And look, sure enough, we go from line to space. And then if I go up to the next F, it's going to be on this line here. Line, space, line. If I go down the other way, the F that is below this octave here, the bass would be right here, and it's on the space below the bass clef. So space, line, space, line. So you can try that on any note and it always follows that pattern. So that something can be very handy when you're trying to figure out notes. It's also just kind of a cool fact to notice that these patterns that exist in music, you're going to find them as you learn to read music and play more music. You're going to find more and more of these patterns that you'll find for yourself. Music is 100% patterns. And so finding them and recognizing them is one of the ways that we get quicker and faster. Knowing these things helps us learn to read faster and just play music better. So my last tip or trick that I have for you today is kind of a neat one, especially if you are really pretty already good at reading the treble clef. This will be a really great tip for you to use in learning to read the bass clef. If you already play, for example, perhaps the clarinet or the flute or the saxophone, something like that, and you're already pretty good at reading the treble clef, this trick will be really helpful in learning to read the bass clef. A lot of times I'll get students who already play, for example, the saxophone, and they want to learn to play the piano as well. And teaching them this little trick makes it a little bit easier to learn the bass clef. Because if you're starting to learn to read piano music, what you've probably already discovered is that the treble clef and the bass clef, the letters are not the same. The lines and spaces are not the same on the treble clef as they are as the bass clef. And that can be a little bit tricky and frustrating for people when they're learning to read the bass clef. For whatever reason, people seem to find the treble clef easier to read the bass clef. So here's a tip that'll help you. So everything on the treble clef, as far as the letters go, now this won't be the same pitches. The notes on the bass clef will be lower and the notes on the treble clef are higher, but the letter names, all you have to do to read the bass clef is if you think of the treble clef with every line or space moved down one. So what I mean by that, for example, if we look at the note G here for our G clef, G is the second line on the treble clef. It is the first line on the bass clef. So it's just one line lower. So if I'm looking at this note and I cannot figure out what is that G, I can't remember my little trick of the ground floor, what I could think of is if I move it up a line, what note would that be on the treble clef? It's a G. So just think of everything moved up. Here we have, let's look at the letter C. So the letter C on the treble clef, it's the third space from the bottom. On the bass clef, second space. If we look at D, it's the 1, 2, 3, fourth line on the treble staff. It's the 1, 2, 3, third line on the bass staff. Make sense? So when you're trying to figure out a bass note, just think what would that letter be moved up either a line or a space, and that'll give you the answer. Hopefully that will be helpful. Thank you so much for watching, especially if you watched all the way to the end. I really appreciate it. And if you did find this video entertaining or informative in any way, I would really appreciate it if you could give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, I'd really appreciate that too. And if you want to hit that bell so you'll get notifications when I post more videos, I'd love that as well. I haven't been posting videos in a long time, but I'm going to try to start doing that again. And so if you hit that bell, then you'll get notified. I'm going to try to do a video a week if possible. That might not happen, but we'll see what happens. I've got a long list of music theory videos that I'm going to be working on. Now, if you have any other ideas, questions that you might have about music theory, or an idea for another video, or even a suggestion about how I can make them better, please feel free to leave those in the comments below. That's incredibly helpful to me, and I really appreciate you taking the time not only to watch my video, but if you have some information that you want to share with me, I'd love that too. So, as I mentioned before, if you watched all the way to the end of the video, I was going to share a secret about the video. And the secret, which is not that exciting, but little tidbit about this particular video is long ago, back when YouTube was new, at least to me, 10 years ago, I started my channel, and I used to post videos on music theory a lot. And this was before, at least I knew of anybody getting paid for making YouTube videos. I certainly wasn't getting paid to make them back then. So this was before the channels were monetized. People were posting videos. So some of the rules and things, as you know, have changed. And long ago, I actually made this video 8 years ago, this exact same video with my tricks and tips for reading notes on the staff. And when I made it 8 years ago, I used what's called a flip camera. I don't know if you remember or saw those back in the day. But the camera came with some software, and on the software it had little clips of music that you could add to your video. So when I made this video, I included some of that music in the video. Well, since the copyright and YouTube rules and regulations have changed, you're not allowed to use that particular music anymore. It belongs to someone else. Someone owns the copyright. So for that reason, YouTube actually turned the sound off on my video so you couldn't hear it at all. And it was just like a little 3-second clip of music that I had added on there. So the video had no sound. So people over the years have been sending me messages. I think that was probably about 4 or 5 years ago when they took the sound away. People have sent me messages like, there's no sound on this video. And that was the reason why. YouTube just turned it off, because that music belongs to someone else and I couldn't have it in my video. So I thought the only really way I could think of fixing that problem was to go back and just remake the video. So I've been wanting to get started making videos again on my channel, and so that's what this is, a remake of the original video from 8 years ago. So if you've been around that long and been watching my videos, you may have seen that one. The information might seem familiar, but I'd like to say that this is still great, even from 8 years ago. These are still great tips and tricks. They still work for reading notes on the staff, so it's still valuable information. That video that I made 8 years ago, as I said, had a whole lot of views on it, so I think it did help a lot of people. So I'm glad to make a new one so we can get it up and going again. So again, thank you so much for watching, especially if you watched all the way to the end. I really do appreciate it. And just don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, hit the bell, and I will look forward to seeing you all in the next video real soon. Take care. Bye-bye.